Many years ago, Nakhon Si Thammarat was the ancient capital city of the southern kingdom of Thailand. Buddhism was accepted and practiced by a great number of people, and many Buddhists from all over Thailand made pilgrimages there. This part of the country is well known for the great pagoda which contains a tooth relic of the Buddha. Within time, this would be the birthplace of another great teacher and spiritual master. On the 14th of October 1951, in the province of Nakhon Si Thammarat, Vinay La Ong Swan was born. He was born into and brought up in a practicing Buddhist family. As a young boy, he was taken regularly to the Buddhist temple by his parents. This was his first introduction to the Buddha Dhamma teachings. After completing his secondary school education, Vinay went to Bangkok to study. While living in the city, he became aware of the suffering and the confusion people undergo in their constant striving for material possessions and pleasurable experiences. One day, while working in a hotel in Bangkok, Vinay read a book titled A Handbook of Mankind, written by Buddhadesa Bhikkhu. Buddhadesa Bhikkhu said that everything is impermanent. One is happy when desire is fulfilled. If desire remains unfulfilled, then one is unhappy. Everything is subject to change. This book created the turning point of his life. So in 1970, Vinay decided to change his way of life. He left Bangkok to go in search of the truth. By devoting himself to an ascetic and simple way of life, the life of a yogi. As a yogi, he retreated to the island of Koh Samed, where he could be next to nature, watching the ocean waves, and later on to Pukadum Mountain, where he could admire the splendor of the forest and the magnificence of the mountains. He studied many philosophers of the world and other religions, but he finally chose the way of the Buddha. Vinay trained himself thoroughly in difficult conditions, sometimes practicing meditation alongside dead bodies obtained from the hospital. He ate very little and he fasted often. His clothes and alms bowl were simply made. Traveling alone, he practiced the discipline of meditation and the 8 Buddhist precepts. He was always happy to teach Dhamma to anyone who came to visit him, although he liked to practice in the silence of the wilderness, which made his mind strong and wise. He gained mental energy and rejoiced in finding increased peace of mind. During the last year of his reclusive yogi life, a vision appeared to Vinay while he was meditating on a mountain. He saw an old man wearing robes and carrying a crystal ball. The old man spoke to him, saying,
"Yantra, now is the time for you to take up the duty of sustaining Dhamma."
The old man offered the young yogi the robes and the crystal ball. When Vinay reached out and received these in his hands, the vision faded and disappeared, leaving him with a feeling of immense rapture through his entire being. The 4 years he spent as a yogi paved his way in search of the noble truth of Buddhism. In 1974, Vinay the yogi was ordained as a monk. He was given the name Amaro, which means the one who will never die. His full name became Phra Ajahn Yantra Amaro. Phra is the Thai word meaning monk or venerable, and Ajahn meaning teacher. After studying the scriptures of Buddhism and serving his religious teachers, he traveled by foot around Thailand. Phra Ajahn Yantra was very disciplined and undertook the practice of austerity. He slept out in the open or in the forest, his only shelter being a mosquito net and an umbrella. He also ate only one meal a day from his alms bowl, with no concern for the way it tasted. In each place Phra Ajahn Yantra traveled through, there were many kinds of wildlife, including some very poisonous snakes. But these potentially dangerous creatures never harmed or attacked him. Practiced was mindfulness of breathing, which helped him to calm his mind and develop insight meditation. In his second year of monkhood, Phra Ajahn Yantra was able to achieve deep concentration during meditation. He sat in one meditation position without moving for 3 days and 3 nights. In this state of concentration, he was able to clearly see the rising and the passing away of not only the body, but also of the feelings, thoughts, and the practice of Dhamma. He contemplated on the suffering of all living beings who are trapped in the cycle of birth and death. He became very moved and immensely inspired, just as if the compassion of love of the Buddha had entered him. After this experience, Phra Ajahn Yantra increased his practice and was regularly able to enter into a deep state of concentration for some days. At sunrise, he would walk to a peaceful place he knew upon a cliff, where he would meditate using the sun as a focal point, welcoming in the new day. He compared the rising and the setting of the sun to the ever-changing phenomenon in our lives. Phra Ajahn Yantra frequently visited cemeteries where he saw many dead bodies. This strange but useful practice kept him conscious of the fact that nothing is worth clinging to. The stillness of the cemetery enabled him by way of contemplation and detachment to focus his mind to be stable and strong. He would constantly tell his disciples, "Where you most fear to tread, you must venture to go." Your fear comes from the illusion of attachment to the body, which we think belongs to us. When we think about death, our fear should decrease, and when we realize the non-self, both attachment and fear will stop. Even though Phra Ajahn Yantra was a young monk and lived deep in the jungle at times, many people came to see him, asking him to teach them Dhamma and meditation. He dedicated himself to his practice so much that everyone, including many other monks, was impressed. The Dhamma he spoke was for everybody, young and old alike, respected him as a teacher and for being very unique in his ways. Although many monks came to study with him, not all of them could follow his strict code of practice he set. To stay with Phra Ajahn Yantra, one has to cultivate great patience. Sometimes he would take the monks and his followers on long walks over extremely tough terrain, often resulting in painfully blistered feet. They would walk in torrential rainstorms or in the sweltering heat of the day. They crossed rivers both deep and wide and climbed steep, winding mountain trails. They would stay in places which were suitable for practicing meditation, and afterwards would move on from village to village or from forest to forest. They all practiced simple daily tasks suggested by Phra Ajahn Yantra. Meditate in the morning, then change your posture. Do some exercise. Eat at a set time and eat moderately. Don't be overcome by greed. When alone, feel as with company. Speak carefully and do as you speak. Don't let an opportunity pass by without doing the right thing. Think before you act, but do not dwell on disappointment or on things in the past. Be aware of the present and increase your effort. Be brave as a hero. Don't rave about the future. Love as a child would. When going to sleep, feel as if it will be your last time. When you awaken, get up immediately, as if kicking off your old pair of shoes. In 1979, Phra Ajahn Yantra made a pilgrimage to Burma, where he visited some important Buddhist shrines and pagodas. During this trip, he was temporarily detained by Burmese soldiers due to a misunderstanding. The experience of being held for 4 months in very primitive conditions helped to strengthen his mind even further. Observing the hell-like suffering, problems, and trouble made Phra Ajahn Yantra vow to put even more effort, time, and energy into his practice in order to cut off the cycle of suffering he was undergoing. The intensity with which he practiced left a strong impression on those surrounding him. One night, while deep in meditation, Phra Ajahn Yantra experienced the feeling that his body floated up into the sky and exploded into countless tiny particles. His mind was focused on one-pointedness, and he felt free, light, and bright. He felt a peace that he had never experienced before. Finally, he had no doubt at all about the truth of Buddha's teaching. He saw everything as a lesson in life, with things acting according to their own nature. He had complete confidence in the Dhamma and felt he could go anywhere without fear. After his release, he returned home to Thailand. During one of his gatherings, he told his disciples that the experience he had undergone in prison was as if he had just emerged from being soaked in water but that he would dry off in time. Since then, wherever Phra Ajahn Yantra went, even to the deep forest, there were always large audiences of both monks and lay followers. He welcomed people from all walks of life, teaching, one should learn from the flowers. The flowers smile and have equanimity for everyone who walks past them, no matter if he is a king or a poor farmer. His teaching was simple, but always touched the audience. Besides guidance in meditation and teaching on the ultimate goal of life, Phra Ajahn Yantra's talks also covered social problems such as environmental conservation, corruption, and immoral business. Uncountable numbers of people were inspired to change or improve their lives towards peaceful and benevolent living. Phra Ajahn Yantra never tired of answering questions both day and night, even when he was physically exhausted. In loving kindness, he sacrificed all his energy to teach others without requesting anything in return. In 1985, Phra Ajahn Yantra established the Sunnataram Forest Monastery in Kanchanaburi Province, which is now his main monastery in Thailand. A large number of people come every day, especially on the weekends, to observe precepts, self-discipline, to practice meditation, and to develop loving kindness. All who come to the forest monastery always make a great effort to practice Dhamma and to help each other with a kind heart and to learn how to forgive and let go so that peace and harmony can exist. In late 1985, Phra Ajahn Yantra informed his followers that he would be taking a leave of absence for at least 5 years. His health had deteriorated, and he was weak. Before his departure, he gave Dhamma talks to more than 10,000 people from dawn until dusk, and left behind only his love, compassion, generosity, and warmth in the hearts of everyone. In 1986, he spent his 3-month rains retreat in a small village in Finland. After that, Phra Ajahn Yantra visited the other Scandinavian countries, including Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. He traveled later on to Germany, Belgium, England, France, and Italy. In 1987, he spent his rains retreat in Yugoslavia, where he was invited to give a number of talks at Belgrade University. After 2 years in Europe, he traveled to Southern California where he spent his 1988 Rains retreat. There he shared his wisdom with his sister, who was ill with cancer, staying with her until she passed on. In 1989 and 1990, while in Australia, Phra Ajahn Yantra laid the foundation for the Sunnataram Forest Monastery, Bandanun, south of Sydney, which was established in 1992. Since then, his disciple monks at Sunnataram Bandanun have provided meditation guidance to many community organizations, including schools, universities, health clubs, spiritual groups, prisons, and for the 2000 Olympics. In 1991, Phra Ajahn Yantra returned to Thailand. Between April 10th and the 24th, 1992, he took about 300 monks, novices, and some 400 lay followers on Tudong in the Great Naray Sawan Forest, one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Kanchanaburi Province. Tudong is the practice of austerity, referring to the shaking off of defilements or attachments. There are 13 ways to practice Tudong, such as eat only one meal a day, eat directly from the alms bowl, use only 3 robes, sleep outside, For this particular Tudong in 1992, Phra Ajahn Yantra emphasized the practice of forest dwelling. The group marched from one village to the next, traveling as many as 20 miles per day, sometimes crossing streams or climbing up jagged rocks and high cliffs barefooted. Through sweat, hunger, and pain, each person learned to exert his or her utmost effort towards creating their ideal practice of self-discipline. Phra Ajahn Yantra guided the followers to walk outside, but stop and sit inside. In fact, the walk was the process of looking inward in order to discipline oneself to cease greed, hatred, and delusion which often appear when confronting difficulties during the Tudong. In 1992, Phra Ajahn Yantra continued traveling overseas to give talks and to teach meditation to various groups of people in many parts of the world. Another monastery in Denmark was founded that year. Early in 1993, Phra Ajahn Yantra left for China, Taiwan, and Mongolia at the invitation of the Buddhist Association of China and the Supreme Patriarch of Mongolia. China and Mongolia were once the great lands of philosophy and Buddhism. However, after a long period of political suppression, the 1990s was the decade of religious recovery. People were enthusiastic when they saw Phra Ajahn Yantra and the group. Thousands of Dhamma books were distributed for free. Many Dhamma discourses took place on the streets, in the buses, temples, and schools. Although he was very sick with the flu, he still gave talks and meditation guidance as usual. His teaching showed how to love, how to forgive, how to practice generosity, and how to accumulate goodness. The joyful faces and smiling eyes still shine in the hearts of everybody in the group. Phra Ajahn Yantra continued his journey to Europe in May of 1993. He noticed that the success in material development in Europe, however, had not provided solutions for many social problems. On this trip, he emphasized the importance of morality, mindfulness, wisdom, and self-sacrifice, which can be a vaccine for many problems in daily life. In Sweden, Noah's Ark, an organization for assisting AIDS patients, invited Phra Ajahn Yantra to give talks and help with fundraising. He shared his message with people in Denmark, Italy, Finland, Germany, France, and England. Giving nourishes the world. It doesn't matter by whom or when. Giving heals sickness and painful hearts. Therefore, accumulate giving. When you give wholeheartedly with willingness and sincerity. Be not narrow-minded, attached, or demanding. Let us forget what we have given to others. October 14, 1993, about 200,000 people got together at Sunnataram, Krung Krawiya in Kanchanaburi to participate in Phra Ajahn Yantra's birthday party. Usually he begins fasting about 10 days before his birthday and goes into deep meditation, dedicating the virtues of his pure mind to his parents and all beings. On his birthday, he comes out of his deep meditation to give talks to people, many of whom have traveled far to rejoice with him. As is customary, people bring many gifts and offer food and supplies. Phra Ajahn Yantra, in turn, distributed these offerings to schools, temples, hospitals, and poor villagers in the remote mountains. Some years, he dug a small hole and asked his audiences to offer him their anger, laziness, smoking, drunkenness, greed, and other immoral habits by making a vow and throwing them into the hole. Phra Ajahn Yantra said that if they could leave those things behind and go home with a new intention, it would be the greatest gift that they could offer to him. From 1995 through 1998, Phra Ajahn Yantra spent his rains retreats at the Sunnataram, California Meditation Monastery. This monastery is situated in Escondido, in Southern California, on top of a hill surrounded by mountains. The 13 acres of avocado, macadamia nut, persimmon, and pomelo groves are also home to rabbits and birds. Occasionally, the doleful howl of a coyote can be heard in the distant mountains. Visitors are greeted by Phra Ajahn Yantra's words, "When the heart is good, everything else is good." At the end of 1997, Phra Ajahn Yantra was flooded with invitations to speak at locations ranging from churches to universities to military bases in Tennessee, Texas, North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona. In many places, it was the saffron robes and strange customs that at first drew interest from the general public. However, as his inspirational teachings reached many new hearts, his presence held an appeal that went way beyond mere curiosity. One such place was Germantown, Tennessee, where Phra Ajahn Yantra had been invited to speak at the town's public library. Despite the religious, political, or socio-economic setting of any city that he visits, Phra Ajahn Yantra continues the Buddhist tradition of leading the monks in taking alms every morning. As one could imagine, the small Tennessee town was a predominantly white community with a very small Asian population. When residents caught sight of the Buddhist monks walking outside with alms bowls in hand, they immediately called the police. When the officers arrived, Phra Ajahn Yantra calmly explained the ancient practice with compassion and a peaceful smile on his face. After that, the policemen became his spokespersons and explained the monks' unusual behavior to the townspeople. The people in the town did not remain anxious for very long. One American woman, a college student who was home on a break, had read about Buddhism at school. She was startled at first when she saw the monks walk by her house, but soon became fascinated by the sense of peace and loving kindness that seemed to encompass them. She inquired all over town as to the nature of their visit. Upon receiving the name and address of their host, she, along with a few of her friends, went and listened to Phra Ajahn Yantra preach about the Dhamma. When he finished, she was so deeply moved and so appreciative of his teachings that she arranged to have him speak at the big church in town. The next day, he gave a Dhamma discourse to nearly 100 people. By the time he was to give a lecture at the library, news of his Dhamma teachings had already spread and the room was filled beyond capacity. The townspeople were so impressed by Phra Ajahn Yantra that they invited him back several times in the following year to the church and to their homes so that their friends and relatives could take part in his heartfelt discourses on Dhamma and meditation. The Dhamma that Phra Ajahn Yantra teaches is based on everyday observations that are simple and profound. When speaking of the differences among the world's various religions, he relates it to a thirsty person who searches for water. It does not matter to the person whether the water is from Europe or Asia, or whether or not its container is made of glass or plastic. The water only needs to be clean so that the person can quench their thirst. He also said that judging which religion is best is like looking at a floral bouquet and saying that a rose is better than a carnation. Which is better than the sunflower? It is impossible to do so, for each flower has its own beauty that is incomparable to another. When they are combined in the same vase, however, their beauty as a whole is infinitely magnified. Dhamma, as Phra Ajahn Yantra teaches, transcends any single denomination or belief system. Beyond the fundamental human requirements of food and shelter, people need love, kindness, understanding, and sincerity. Inner peace, part of the ultimate goal of most religions, is attainable if you can maintain the basic precepts such as not lying, killing, or stealing, learn how to sacrifice, and meditate daily. religion you believe in is far less important than the strength of your faith and how you incorporate it into your life and your world. Between March and July of 1998, Phra Ajahn Yantra traveled through 20 states at the invitation of students and followers all over the United States, giving over 150 Dhamma discourses to thousands of people from coast to coast. He and a small entourage of monks and followers were warmly welcomed everywhere they went. The English versions of his books on Dhamma and meditation were widely distributed throughout the United States and have been met with great appreciation. Phra Ajahn Yantra teaches everyone, regardless of race and religion, to radiate loving kindness to all life and to live as one family. He embodies all the principles that he imparts to his followers because his objective is to spread Dhamma and to encourage all to respect and to help fellow beings unconditionally. He aspires to accomplish one thing: to teach people how to live in harmony and tranquility.